We'll go ahead and get started. I've turned on the recording for the benefit of those who weren't going to be here. If anyone has any ideas of topics that you would like to cover, please let me know. Short of that, I had a couple things that I wanted to go over today, patron notes and alerts, as well as user buckets, which is a new feature. I had myself on mute. You weren't hearing anything that I was saying. So what I've done is I've gone into the create a new note area, gave it a title, patron visible. If you check this box, it will be visible to the patron. So I'm going to create one for both examples, and put a value in here. We need a new email for Beth. I'll click on OK. Fill out this field. So it's asking for my initials because it wants to know which staff member created this. Click OK. All right, and it indicates that it's a staff only note. So if I go back, try to think, if I go out of my record and then come back in, okay, you can now see that there's a box with indicating that there's one note. And if I click on it, it will bring up the note. Any questions so far?
Hi, Beth. This is Anna.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I have a question about this in relation to the alert. So, for instance, one of the things that we do at Hood River is because in the staff client, right, the notes is kind of separate. We generally go, and if we have something about the patron, a note about the patron, we usually go to edit and put it in the alert.
Yeah, I was going to show that next. That is another possibility. so there's flexibility in how you want to handle this. I think with the web client, the notes are much more visible. So you may not need the alert, but they're both useful.
Will the notes appear right on the staff client the way that, because the alerts pop up the minute you open up the patron's account, which is
Yes.
not the case with notes in the staff client. So with this, it doesn't, is this the first screen that you come to if you pull up a
Yes.
patron's account? So you will actually see any notes that have been placed in the patron's record. That's the first thing you'll see.
Well, you'll see this box up here on the left, and you do have to click on that to actually see the note
Okay.
when you come into the patron. So it kind of advertises that there's a note, but it doesn't display it automatically, whereas the alert will display.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, after I did this note thing, I was going to go into and add an alert to my record. So if I go back to other and add a note, I'm already in there. Silly me. Okay, so add new note. This one I want to actually make visible, and then go out to the catalog and show you what it would look like to the patron. So in this case, I'm adding a note for both staff and for the patron. Here again, it wants me to enter my initials. I do. Click OK. If I open up another tab, let's see, is this going to work? Okay. Click on my account. Okay. Case where, do I remember my password? No. Well, this would be where you'd be calling the library to change your password, but I'm here so I can do it. Okay. We'll see if I can actually get in. Yay. Okay. So messages. So the patron would have to click into their messages tab to actually see the note, but it is there for them to take a look at, and they can actually delete it. Interesting. I haven't tried to do this before. Has anybody else played with the patron messages on the OPAC, the notes? All quiet?
So,
Go ahead.
oh, so Beth, so if we go back to um, your account from
Mhm.
the staff page, has it disappeared now, or is it still there? Is it just that the patron has deleted it from their account, but it's still visible for staff? Because right, because we wouldn't necessarily
Correct. Yeah, it's still in my account.
okay.
I just refreshed the screen, and I don't see any changes. I see both notes still here. So my curiosity would be to relog into my account on the OPAC and see if it actually disappears, um, indicating that, okay, I've seen this note, I don't need to see it anymore, um, that kind of thing. Or whether the delete button doesn't really work. So I'll check both those things out. But it's a curiosity because I hadn't seen this before, but I hadn't played with it a lot. So I was curious as to whether others had seen similar behavior or whether this was new or potentially a bug, that kind of thing. But it is good to see that the notes remain here. And obviously, when we're done with them, we can delete them at any point. So as Anna was talking about earlier, the alert message, that goes in the record itself. Um, Down here in this box. Okay, alert. No, we want. What would we want to say in alert message? Okay, so I'm going to put an alert message. Please check with patron for new address. Click on save. Okay, you can see now my name is highlighted in red, and it is asking for, it displays this message right here. So if I went out of this patron, went back to the home screen, went to circulation, retrieve last patron. It's displaying it. I'm thinking that if I go to, say I want to do a checkout to this patron, typically what happens is the stop will come up. So I'm going to check out. Yeah. So it doesn't display the stop like it did before in the web client, but it does display the message in red. For those of you who have alerts for your patrons and have been using the web client, is this what you've been seeing? Okay, well, as you have the opportunity to play around with it, let me know if you're seeing anything that I guess hinders your workflow or that you would like to see different. The fact that it's in red stands out pretty good. So I don't know that it's a problem, and it's actually, in some senses, in the desktop staff client, there was a stop icon and then the message displayed, and then you had to click on the button again to actually continue working. So in some senses, this is, I think, a better workflow, but I'd like to know your feedback as well. Okay, so that's the alert message. There's also a third area, and this is called, it's under the Message Center. Shows messages. It's thinking.
Beth?
Yes, Anna.
So about the notes, do we know if a note was put in a patron's account from the desktop client, if it is showing up in the web client?
It should, yes. Yeah. The patron alerts are different than the copy alerts that change their location. So all of the alerts that were entered in the staff client should be in the web client.
Okay, great.
Okay. So the area I was actually thinking about was this messages here. We have the ability to apply additional messages to the patron record. And there are 3 different types of messages. And it's, in a sense, it's a duplication. So I don't know whether both these functions will continue to stick around. In the staff-generated penalty messages, you have the ability to I'll click on this. There's 3 different types. There's a note, there's an alert, and there's a block. The note is very similar to the other notes that I created, but it cannot be a patron visible note. This is strictly a staff note, and you just enter the note in here, click OK, and it also would appear in messages. So we'll just type in test note 1, see what it does. It wants me to fill out initials just like the other one did. So I'm curious. Okay, so test note, no blocks, applied on. So where does this display? It's not displaying here. If I redisplay my patron record, it doesn't add to the notes here. Does it display when I bring up the patron record itself? Curious. So it doesn't seem very useful to me since it doesn't display. So I'm going to look into this some more and see whether it's just something I'm missing or
Beth, I have a quick question. This is Dia.
Yeah.
So if it was still highlighted, you hadn't clicked on it, would it show the number up there by messages? Like it does in some of the other things. Because you're right, it doesn't present a very helpful situation.
No, it doesn't. So I'm curious as to why there's this type of note versus the other note, because the other note's much more visible. I could see this being used a lot more for an additional alert, because when we edit the patron record, we can only type in one message there unless we want to conglomerate individual messages together. So let's add an alert in here. Test alert 1. Click OK. Initials. Click OK. All right, this one does appear underneath my name, along with my initials, test alert. So it would give you the ability to add additional alert messages for the patron if you needed to. This I see more useful. If you see under the label here, it says alerting note, no blocks. That means that the patron's not blocked from doing anything, but we are displaying a message to staff for some reason. When I click on apply, there's also a third apply standing penalty or message, which is a block. And if I put the note in here, if I create this message/penalty, it will block the patron from circulation, holds, and renewals. So it's another way to block the patron. Like I said, I don't know that anybody is using this feature. I just wanted to let you know it was there. Any other questions at this point? Okay.
If you do check on those boxes,
Yes.
does actions highlight? So what is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can remove it, you can modify it, and then archive means you don't want it displaying on the record, but you don't want to lose track that you had this message on the patron's record. So it's a way of putting it kind of like in reserve, so you can go and check back through previous messages for a particular patron to see if there's maybe a continuing behavior going on, but it doesn't show in red once it's archived. So at this point, I could remove my penalty/messages, and they are gone. If I redisplay, they're gone from the top. Now the alert that I had put in my record is still there. So I'd have to go back and edit and remove the message just by clearing it, clicking on save, and then my name no longer appears in red, and I have no alert message there. The notes are still here. I can delete both of these. And delete this one. If I redisplay the record, it no longer has that orange box for notes. So my record is back to its old state. Any other questions before we move on to user buckets? Okay, and if you don't have audio, feel free to put something in the chat box, and if I don't see it, somebody else will let me know that it's there. So user buckets is a new feature in the Evergreen web client, and basically what it does is it allows you to either batch delete a bunch of patrons or batch edit a bunch of patrons, and there's a few different ways to get things into a patron bucket. One of the things you can do is search for patrons, which may or may not be useful. When I was doing this earlier, I was thinking, gosh, it'd be really helpful to have an expiration date on the search, but they don't, because I was thinking it'd be a good thing to be able to search and find a bunch of expired patrons and change their expiration date. So can any of you think of something that you might want to do as a batch edit?
change the address for an entire family, but I think I saw somewhere that that's not possible through this
It is true.
function.
That's true. I guess I should start off by saying what is possible. Yeah, the address is not possible, at least at this point. Things that you can change with a batch edit are things like home library, profile group, the network access level, which we don't really use that much, the barred flag, the active flag, juvenile flag, the privilege expiration date. Statistical categories is another thing that you can batch edit. So I'm just going to kind of just bring up a group of people. Who knows how many Mary Smiths are in the catalog, but I just want to bring up grouping to show you kind of the mechanism for adding to a bucket from the patron search. So I've got my list, and I can select individuals. The first one I selected, it brings up a short display. At this point, I can click to add to bucket, and I can either add to a new bucket or an existing bucket. As you can see, I was working with some expired patrons from Columbia Gorge, so that's why I have this bucket. If I wanted to create a new bucket, just click on this. And it will give me the opportunity to name and describe my bucket. And most of the time, our buckets are not staff shareable, but that is a possibility if there was. I see this more in the line of bibs and in copies than I do with patrons, but it is a possibility. Enter those and then create the bucket. Okay. Because I'm not going to actually do anything with this group of patrons, I'm going to get out of here. Another way to get into user buckets is to go to the circulation menu and down to user buckets. Here again, if I have an existing bucket, I can just click on this drop down and I can edit my bucket, or I can go to specifically to the expired patron bucket that I already created. So I'm going to create a new bucket, and I've got some EOU patrons to delete, so I'm going to click on EOU patrons. Okay, create bucket. And I'm automatically in this bucket. But as you can see, there's no patrons in my bucket at this point. So I could search for individual patrons, or I could bring them in via a file. If I click on pending users, I can scan in barcodes individually, or I can choose a file. So what I'm going to do is I have a spreadsheet on my system. I'm just going to grab a few barcodes, copy them to Notepad, save it as EOU patron, click on save. Okay, now if I click on choose file, go to desktop, EOU patron.txt, click on open. It just added all those patrons to my bucket.
So Beth, I have a quick question. This is Dia.
Yeah.
So I've always thought in the web client that these buckets, when you have the choice to choose a file, have to use the CSV. Is that not correct? You can use
Yeah, it'll
Notepad as well?
it will also read text files. The thing with text files is I just have one field in there, just the barcode.
Right.
But yes, it doesn't have to be CSV as long as it can interpret. Basically, it's just looking at one column of items. It doesn't care whether it's CSV or text.
Okay. That's helpful to know, because it made it sound like that's the only option was the CSV.
Yeah, and that's what it describes. Yeah, in the header, it says CSV, but I've used text files successfully, at least to this point.
Okay.
Okay, so all of these pending users are not actually in my bucket yet. They're copied in. If I want to highlight all of them and send them to my bucket, I just do this and it takes all of them there. And then under actions, I can add them to my bucket. And what that does is it takes them from pending users to bucket view. And if I click on that, I now see all of them in my actual bucket. So it's kind of a gradual process. You have to get them in pending users first, and then at least this method of getting things into the bucket. So at this point, I can click on all of these or individual ones and then do different actions with them. So once they're in my bucket, I can edit selected users, or I can remove ones from my bucket that I've already dealt with. So if I just wanted to create a list that, say as you're working with patrons and you realize, oh, I need to change this about the patron record, you can add it to a bucket and then go in and deal with that change later. In this case, I'm wanting to delete all users. And when it says delete all users, what it actually does is it sets the delete flag on their patron record in the database to true. It doesn't actually remove them from the database, so if for some reason that patron needed to be resurrected, it could. And this was something that I found out as I was working with deleting patrons. It's like, okay, is it permanently deleted? Is it not? It's not permanently deleted, but it won't come up in searches. So in all sensitive purposes, it is deleted, but I wanted to let you know that the information about that patron is still stored in the database. Okay, so at this point, I click on delete all users. It asks me for a name for the delete set, and that is because anything you do, most anything, except for statistical categories, that's an exception, you have the ability to roll back the changes you made. So it wants a name for the delete set, and so I can just say EOU delete 1, click apply changes, and it has deleted all those users in the system. So if I went to bring up one of their barcodes in the system, let me try and do that now. Let's go to circulation, checkout, and I'm going to do a control click so that it brings it up in a new tab so I don't lose my other tab. And I'm going to type in yeah. Okay. Okay, it says barcode not found. So the client says that it no longer exists. At this point, I would probably remove all of my selected users from the bucket because it's accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. So does that seem straightforward, clear? Any questions? Okay. Let's go and grab another one of those barcodes just for okay. Go back to pending. I'm just going to type in one of these barcodes. Enter. It's in my pending. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to click add to bucket. It's in my bucket. Now what I want to do is batch edit all users. It's also asking me a name for the edit set. Okay, and then I get to choose from one of these. I can either change the home library, the main profile, internet access level, barred, active, all of those things that I indicated that you were able to change. You can do it here. So what do I want to change? Let's see. 03. Okay, so I'm changing the expiration date on this particular patron. Click apply. Okay, now if I go to bring this patron up, which I can bring the patron up by clicking this underlined barcode. Okay, you will see that the expiration date has been changed. It's also giving me a message, a system message saying the patron account will expire soon. Please renew, which makes sense. The patron's going to end up being deleted anyway, but I just wanted to go through the process of making a change to a record. By clicking on that, I did click out of my bucket. So to get back to the bucket, I just hit the back arrow on the browser and it gets me back there. Some of these functions that we're going to be improving the software so that things automatically open up in a new tab for us so that we don't lose where we were at. Because I know that there's a list of those that other staff at other libraries in the Evergreen system have wanted to open automatically in a new tab, so they're working on those features. So if I wanted to view batch edits, you can see the different things that I've done. Okay, those are just the different, I had that delete and the edit batches. If I want to roll back one of my edits, I just select which one I want to roll back. I want to roll back the EOU edit one, roll back the changes. Okay. Now if I bring that patron back up again, I'm wondering what the expiration date will be. Okay, expiration date is back to what it was, 9/6/2015. Questions?
Beth, this is kind of a side question. So I saw that there still is a stop page, but it looks like maybe that stop page only appears if it's kind of for particular types of alerts, or like ones that are maybe system generated as opposed to alerts entered by staff.
Well, that's a good question, Anna. Part of me was wondering whether, because I was going in and out of a record and there was some, I wasn't sure whether I was going to see the stop if I hadn't already been in that record. Does that kind of make sense? So I think we'd have to go to a brand new patron that I hadn't been working in and adding those alert messages and going back and forth to see whether we're still getting the stop message. Because you're right, we did see it on that particular patron. And it was a system-generated message. And off the top of my head, I don't know of a patron that has an alert in their record that I can just bring up randomly. I guess I could go back to my record now that I've been in the EOU record and see if, I took the alert out of my record. That won't work. Just trying to think of a way we can test it for the ones that were, maybe what we'll do is we'll add an alert to this record. Click on save. Oh. What is it not happy about? Date of birth. That's because I'm logged in as a Baker workstation looking at an EOU patron. And different libraries have different requirements for required fields, and it's wanting me to enter a date of birth, which isn't going to make any sense. We can say that they were born today, which we know is silly, but it will get us past the requirement, and the record's going to be deleted anyway. Okay, so let me get out of this patron record by searching for my record again. Okay, I've brought up my record. Okay. Let's attempt to check out, do checkout again. We'll bring up the EOU patron. Okay, the wrong one. All right, what was the one that I edited? Okay, let me paste that in here. Okay. So it does display the EOU expired patron alert message that I had down in here. So it's very possible, Anna, that the stop thing could still occur. I guess the ultimate test would be to go ahead and edit the expiration date so that there's no system message.
Oh, right, because that's the part that's being automatically generated. So
Yeah. Okay. And I'll close that tab. Go back to checkout. Type in that barcode again. Okay. So we tested it. It does show it up. I think the reason it wasn't displaying was because of the fact that I was going back and forth between cached content, and so it felt no need to show it.
Right. Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks, Beth.
So we're seeing the same behavior in both the web client and the staff client for things that are going to come up with an alert message. Okay, so it's a very good question. We discovered together what the behavior was going to be like. Okay, I show 10 minutes to the hour. Are there any other questions before we sign off? And anything that you'd like to see covered in a future session? Okay, well, thanks everybody. If you think of questions afterwards, feel free to email me. This recording will be posted up on our YouTube channel. And hope everybody has a good day.